What's up, everybody? This is the Dungeon Boyz.
Dungeon Boyz.
Yes.
When you do it.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back.
Oh, man. It has been a week, and, it started last week, but we've moved to Mondays now. I do a lot of the editing and a lot of the directing.
The hard work.
But Jair was the one that's like, hey, instead of us being shaky and flaky on our times, if we move it to Monday, even though we record on Wednesdays, that gives us all the time to edit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been putting a lot of ideas. Jair was like, what about a good one? And I enjoyed that. So, yeah, this is a good new change for us. There's a lot of good changes.
And I mean, it definitely just gives us enough time to, if we need to fix anything, we can listen to the podcast ourselves and see if we heard anything weird.
Yeah.
We can, or if the whole podcast doesn't work, we can at least try and record it again.
Re-record
which I hope it doesn't happen.
You said it out loud now, so it's going to. The other good thing is that we have very weird job times,
yep.
And so it's hard to find time if anything comes up to get those moments to make it work. And so that's a wonderful, flexible thing we can do. But speaking of doing stuff, Jair, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Following through my bachelor life.
Yo.
With my new place, got myself a futon.
Yes.
It's some really cool stuff. I was waiting for it diligently in my front door for 3 days. I camped it.
Outside your house.
Just waiting for
the
the UPS truck to drive by, and he finally did. Yesterday afternoon, and I set up my futon and promptly fell asleep for 20 hours.
I believe it.
But I'm also doing this really cool thing that my friend from New York, Jasenia, hooked me up with. I will be judging for a winter film festival in New York.
Yes.
It's kind of like a crowdsourced judging. So there's a lot of people. There's thousands of people judging these movies. But it's going to be a big festival. There's about 200 or plus entries, and it's a bunch of short films, a couple of long, full-length films, documentaries, and whatnot. And we are going to be getting about 10 movies every week to watch and review. That's going to be, fun, and it's going to take a toll on me, but I love watching movies. Especially the really bad ones. Oh. And there was a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I gave you the 2 out of 5 review, but, get good.
Get good. You said it sounds like it can go to anyone to be judges, but it's special that you were chosen because you are, you have history with trying to be in film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I worked with screenwriting, I worked with production back in Puerto Rico. Just small, short things, but it's a passion for me. It's something I love doing, and I'm glad I get that chance. And thank you to Jasenia to hook me up with that, because she's going to do the same thing. So you're just going to truck through.
You know what, Jasenia? I think Jasenia is our person of the week.
She
is our James of the week.
James of the week. Oh yeah. Shout outs to James
and James. Hi James.
Yes.
Hope you're killing it.
What about you? How have you been?
I got a couple things. I had a fun. Well, it didn't start out fun, but it ended great. I had purchased a copy of Brass Lancashire a while back.
Oh yeah.
And for those who don't know, Brass was a game from 2007, way back, right as board games were starting to get really, really big. And it's this massive, massive game. It also looks like it's from the 80s and 70s. It's really outdated looking but I really wanted to try it. Well, Roxley, the same people who brought Santorini to life. So bless Roxley. They brought back Brass and they reprinted it. Not the game, not the original. They spruced it up. It is gorgeous. Nice. I can't wait to show you the board and see all the components. And it's incredible. And not only that, but they gave 2 versions of Brass, Lancashire and Birmingham. Lancashire is the original Brass, just brought to life. And then Lancashire is a new version that adds some different stuff.
Is it Lancashire or Birmingham?
Birmingham is the new stuff. Lancashire
Okay.
is the reprint.
Okay.
I get them mixed up a lot. But I bought Lancashire, the original, at my local store. It's in Albuquerque and Houston. We're still not sponsored to say that yet, but it's just fun to say.
Yeah.
But I opened it up And as soon as I hit the plastic, like one of the corners just popped open.
Oh.
And I was just like, what? No, this is what happens when you play the game 80,000 times, not right away. And I talked to the store owner, and he just looks at me like, I don't know what I can do for you on that. Contact Roxley, see what they can say. And I contacted Roxley, and I got a very first like, hey, we typically don't do those. It was very standard issue email. Like, I expected that. Most of your board game people are happy to give you replacement parts, but boxes are a big order for them.
Right.
And time went on, but then Paul at Roxley gets a hold of me. He says, hey, Nick, I've been looking all over the warehouse, and we actually don't have any spare boxes for Lancashire at the moment, but I can make you this really good deal for this issue you've been having, and we've been talking back and forth. And basically, for a really good price, we're going to be getting a hold of Brass Birmingham as well. Yeah. But we're getting the deluxe version, the Kickstarter, that's going to come with clay coins and upgraded stuff. It's so fantastic that they just went out of their way. They saw that this just didn't go as they had hoped and went that extra mile. And it's a little thing, but it was a really stressful week when that happened. And we just finished everything this last week. And it felt really good. Game companies, the really good ones, are always looking out. And so Roxley, Paul from Roxley, thank you for that. Thank you for Santorini. Thank you for everything, because Roxley has a lot of really good games. Their production quality is super high. I'd say Santorini's been kind of the pinnacle for me, but they have other ones that definitely make an effort to. Did you ever play the PlayStation game Super Motherload?
Oh, I did not.
It's a really fun. It's like a monotonous, like just drill game. Okay. They have a chit building game. Chit is a term for like little cardboard tokens.
Okay.
And so you're collecting little pieces of Mars and stuff.
CHIT?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. Chit. We may use that in the future, but that is a term. Chit. And yeah, so they have a whole bunch of stuff. Go check them out. They get my love. And then also we are getting ready. Yeah, we're getting ready. We're going to be finishing up the new escape room.
Ooh,
Our escape room starts. The Dungeon Boyz Productions bring you the super secret.
Oh yes, we're going to be talking about that a bunch. We're gonna
as much as we can.
Yeah, because just going through like the escape room that's being built now, the Blackwell Manor. Just that's everything we talk about at work. And I mean, we would love to talk about it here in the podcast, but we've been busy with Scythe and all this stuff we're doing. But once the super secret's gonna be up, that's gonna be like a big percentage of our like work.
We usually just run games, but we are gonna be. I think we're gonna be major correspondents for the making of this room.
Oh yes,
I hope we are. And but the other problem is though the theme is a mystery itself. We will as long as the room is successful, we never intend to explicitly say what it is.
Yes.
So there's that, and it's kind of difficult. Like whereas Blackwell Manor is a spooky house with a dead family, and you have to figure out the haunting and all that. We're happy to tell you, but one of the hooks of this room is that we can't.
Right.
But we can tell you it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's silly.
Yes.
I will reveal it's pretty comedic, but it's exciting and thrilling. It's a lot of good stuff. So that's us. We're doing good. Cool. We had a really good game week this week. We sat down, even though we started a little later than I intended, we got a lot of games knocked out.
Yes.
Today we're only going to review 2, but we played games like Flashpoint and Don't Mess with Cthulhu. With Don't Mess with Cthulhu, we got plenty of games in it, and we're almost ready to review that one.
Oh, definitely.
But Flashpoint we didn't actually get to finish. That is the oldest game in my collection. All the other ones that were around during that time have been sold, upgraded, or like I had Escape, Curse the Hidden Temple I got at the exact same time. But now I have the big box version. The only original game I still have is Flashpoint, and I've upgraded it. Cool. I've got the big broken token box. I love it. So spoiler. We want to talk about that, but we want to get some more games under our belt, and we want to we also want to review Exodus from. What do all 3 of these games have in common? They are made by Indie Boards and Cards, one of my absolute favorite companies, and we're gonna have a big week next week. We're outside of Scythe. We're just gonna be talking about their games and the exciting, fun stuff they bring us. So be ready for that. Let's set up here. What games are we talking about today, Jair?
Well, talking about indie boards and games, we're starting with The Resistance.
The Resistance!
Ooh. Oh, I could see the... You're just getting giddy about it.
I've been dying to get this to the table. Then we have Favor of the Pharaoh. This is a game I have been dying to show Jair.
And I'm really glad that we played it.
Oh, man.
That was really fun.
It's got multi-purpose on this thing, and I'm excited to tell you why. After that, what do we, after a good tea time, what else is on the schedule?
We'll talk about a little bit of our Scythe campaign. It's
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6, almost done, almost ready to call it a day with Scythe, or 8.
Man. Oh, man. It has been, oh, man. Yes. And then summer camp.
Yeah.
Really excited for that because...
Cool new things going on summer
not
camp.
where we expected to be last week, but there's a lot to talk about. So, really excited. Let's just hop in.
Let's get to it.
Okay, so, Resistance. I'll talk about Resistance.
Yeah,
Let's see.
Tell me about it.
The Resistance is a game by Indie Boards and Cards, developed by Don Eskridge, a guy who loves the social deduction and politicking. And he made it this. And the whole point of the game is that it's a future dystopia. The game literally comes from a universe called the Dystopian Universe, where the 1% evil cyberpunk corporations have taken over. And they rule everything. It's evil, it's bad. And you yourselves play the Resistance group trying to overtake them. You will do this by going on missions. To do so, you'll trust members of your team. The problem is, of course, your opponents are rich and powerful, and they have the in. They know what you're trying to do, so they've sent spies into your group. Mm. By doing so, this game becomes the pointing and accusing and yelling the game. So how does it play? Basically, the game goes from, I believe, 5 to 10 people. It is a party game. Depending on the number of people, there's a certain number of spies. Our big games we played were with 6 people, which means there's 2 spies. The spies learn who each other are, but no one else knows who the spies are. So they know to work with each other, gain trust amongst everybody. Because if you're a spy, the whole point is to stay hidden and be trusted as a good person. Then, depending on the round, there's a certain number of people that get asked to join a mission. And the first mission is just 2 people. And the leader says, hey, Jair, Nick, go on a mission together. Everyone votes if it's right. And then we both get a pass and fail card. If you're a good guy, you always send the pass card. You want the mission to succeed. And if all the cards that come up, because both players give a card, and if they both come up and succeed, then the Resistance wins that round. The spies can give a fail or a pass. They get to choose between the two. And so they can choose to stay hidden, let the Resistance have that round, but in doing so, they gain people's trust. Or throw in the spy, so the spies win that round, but everyone knows somebody in that group was evil.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. In the next round, so in a 6-player game, the first round is just 2 people. Then in the round 2, there's 3 people that have to be chosen. In round 3, 4. If you were counting before, 6 players, 2 spies. For the Resistance to win that 3rd round, that person has to guess everyone who isn't a spy. And that rarely happens. 4th round is 3, and then 5th round is 4. And it's this back and forth, because the game starts off nice and gentle. You know,
usually at the beginning,
I've seen it a number of times. I can count on one hand where a spy is shown in the first round. A spy does not want to be like narrowed down to a 50-50. That's never a good idea. But that 3rd round, when one of the spies shows up, which usually happens, it didn't actually happen that often when we played. But when it does, immediately the eyes perk up and the judgment starts. And I'm like, Jair, you weren't on the first mission. You were on the 2nd mission. What happened? Talk to me. Well, I'm sitting here, the spy, who was on the good mission and then failed it, but I'm pointing at Jair. And Jair knows he's good, so he knows one of the other people is. And the trust, it's just...
Oh, yeah. You don't know who to trust. You don't know...
man.
Other than yourself, you know for sure that if you're a spy, you gotta play it, and you gotta play that part of the good guy, because anything can just jump you off. Even if you say it's like, oh, I think you're a spy, then everyone is like, oh, why are you accusing him?
Yeah, why are you accusing him?
You're a spy. You're a spy. Everyone's a spy, or they're not. But at the end of the game, it's just like how well the spies play their part, and I don't even care, like, because I don't think I ever won. I was only a spy once.
Yeah,
we played a couple of times,
which was hilarious. We'll talk about that.
We'll get to that.
But
I never won as a spy. But I do think it's more fun to be a spy, because you still have to work for it. You are kind of in an advantage because you can just fool around. But as a good guy, you're just stressing out and being like the thing level of like who is
that
who.
Was what I was going to say.
Yes.
The best way to describe this game is John Carpenter's The Thing. Yep. That moment with the blood boiling. You know, right before that, when everyone's sitting around staring at each other, and they all know one of them is a big fat fibber and is evil, but everyone is saying they're okay. That is the resistance.
Yep.
And just being able to point without any risk of an alien actually eating you is it's everything. So how when we talk about the accessibility of this game, I tell people this game comes in 5 stages. The first one is, okay, I'll humor you, Nick. I'll give this a shot, because I will bring this to my casual people. This is when I talk about, I wouldn't bring this to this. I will almost always bring resistance to the table if I can. Okay, we'll try it out. And they bleed through it. They kind of struggle with the concept. I always pray they aren't a spy so that they can try to guess who a spy is.
Right.
And they don't have to turn their lying face on. Then they're at the end, they're like, okay, I think I get it. The game is super short. Like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So you immediately just bust it open again. All you have to do is take some tokens off, shuffle some cards, and you're ready to go.
I think out from your first playthrough, just like it being so short, I think you play it once, and then by the second time you play it, you're already like,
that's step 2.
Oh, okay, this is what I have to do.
This. Let me try one more time to make sure I've got this.
Yeah, and there's a lot more human input than the game itself, because that's the game. You're trying to figure out who is lying to you. And that comes from the player, not from the game itself.
I would say 80% human, 20% the game. Because you can start to count rounds, who went to them.
Exactly.
There were components that we had that I didn't add to the game where basically like we can keep log of who went on what round and if they were successful or not. So basically as you line them up, people will be like, well, wait, you were on every round that failed. Or, look, he has a perfect track record. And they don't have to remember it. I'm so-so about it. I kind of like having to remember. There were a couple times I was like, were you on that mission? I would ask because I was or like maybe I was the spy. Were you on that mission? I kind of forget. I'm trying to think if you're a bad guy or not. And I'm sitting like, I know you didn't go on that mission, but if I can convince one other person you did, I'm getting off the topic. But yeah, the second one, they're figuring it out. And then they start having fun. They start getting to the yelling and the hooting and because the first time you were playing, you got it, but you were a little quiet. You were sitting in the back. That second one, you got a little louder. And then the third, for everyone's like, at that point, it's like, I'm ready. And you're a spy. Yeah. You were a spy last 2 games. You're a spy now, you filthy traitor. I know it's you. And that's great. I love that. And so that answers the next question. Replayability. I just said, on average, you play 3 to 5 times the first time.
Like 4.
I think we only played 2 or 3 in that time around.
Oh yeah, because we did play.
We had met Don't Mess with Cthulhu. We were trying to get through a lot of our party games and stuff. But a lot of what you experienced, you'll see with different people. It's a little samey, but in the best way. All the stuff you love, you will get to experience with other people. How good are they at bluffing? How good are they at yelling their innocence truthfully? That it's a magical little moment there. The game also comes with a lot of expansions.
Yep.
I have all of them.
You were just telling me about them.
Yes, I have every expansion for the Resistance. There's 3 of them, and all they're all modules. I don't usually like modules. But the thing is I'll talk about 2 different games. Kingsburg. Kingsburg is a dice placement game, and the base game comes with like 5 modules. It's super good if you like tall collections. Just a couple games you'll play 1,000 times and adds different flavor. I have a wide collection. I don't get a lot of games to the table, so a game like Kingsburg, I'm always have to play the base game. The Resistance, by the end of it, we already threw one of the modules in.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. There's the Commander. There's another game called Resistance Avalon, which is just medieval version, and that he was called Merlin. So the spies know who each other are, and then they close their. The idea is we all close our eyes, and the spies open their eyes and look. Merlin, afterwards, the spies put their thumbs up with their eyes closed, and Merlin opens up his eyes and sees who the spies are. That's broken, right? That's so crazy broken. However, one of the spies is an assassin. And if the Resistance wins the game, the spies have one chance to guess who Merlin is. And if they guess right, then they automatically win. So I drew Commander in our last game. I was sitting there like, I don't want to be Commander. I want, no. And I look, and Jair is a filthy spy, and Avery is, the guy's directly to the left and right of me. I am cornered, and I have to make sure I am not that obvious.
Yep.
I thought I was doing a good job.
I mean, I guess you did, because
I just talked Avery out of it.
Yeah. You out-talked me.
Yeah, I out-talked you. Yeah. That's what this podcast is. I don't need it to be. But, so we're going, and Panda's playing with us.
Right.
And Panda's just so happy for once in his life to not be the spy, because as you play, it's a big trope of Resistance and a lot of these social deduction games, that there are going to be people who are always the bad guy.
Yeah.
If Sam ever listens to this, Sam is always the spy. Colton was always the spy. There were times I was always the spy. So Panda's had that issue. And luckily, I'm Merlin. I knew he was not the spy. So it was great to have someone he knew he could trust. But he's right across from me.
Yep.
And as we're playing, the one thing is both of you would look to everyone else, and I would just be eyeballing the two of you back and forth, just like when you watch tennis. If you all like imagine you're at the front seat of Wimbledon, the very front, so it's the most extreme neck turn, and I am just looking at them both. And I don't think Panda's getting the idea, so I'm like,
Panda is freaking out. He is
freaking out. And he does see it. I didn't know that he could see it or not. But then I also, I rest my head on top of my hands, but I'm secretly pointing to both of them when they're not looking. I'm trying to figure out, okay, Jair can't see the finger being pointed. I gotta make sure Avery's not looking. Okay, Jair's not looking, point at Avery. And just doing this back thing over and over. And I'm still not getting any, and eventually I think he realizes I need a confirmation. And I just see the slightest head nod. Tiniest head nod. And I was like, good, okay, we're good. And then he starts these two, evil, down, damn them. And it was so, and then we won.
Yeah.
Well, here's the best thing. We sent you out on the third round. I was trying to get you both to go.
Yeah.
I was trying to get both of you to go, and I forget what my reasoning was. I think I was being too obvious, but I was trying to make it look completely the opposite. And it just got interpreted exactly as I want both spies to go so they can reveal themselves. So they just decided to send you, and I was like, no! Crud! That means the spy's going to get it, and we still have to deduce who of that group it was. I know it's Jair, but I can't just point and say, it's him! Or else I'm going to out myself. But then you put a good one in there. And let me tell you, I outed myself. Because the 3 successes came up, which meant the Resistance had won.
Yeah.
I can't, it's hard to explain a game and give you a play-by-play when you don't always completely understand it. But Jair threw the game.
Yep.
And only 3 people in the room knew he threw the game. Jair did, Avery did, and Avery looks up, what did you do? And luckily he's really loud because I just made this face, oh, what? Just happened. And I was like, oh God, I have to hide. And I just immediately, I have to hide this face. They're going to know who Merlin is just by this reaction. And I just swallowed my face back into, I guess us Resistance won. Good job, team. And so
then it was Avery. Then it was Avery.
But Avery was the assassin.
Yeah, Avery was the assassin, but it was Avery and me trying to figure out who the commander was. And he was dead set on you.
Yes.
And I was going to confirm that it should be you.
Well, first he's like, I think it's you. And I was like, because we call it pulling the trigger. You have to pull the trigger on someone, and the assassin gets to do it. That's the thing is, he can listen to everyone and talk it out and everything else. or he can just point and shoot. And he was like, I think it's you. I think you're the commander. I was like, are you sure about that? Are you sure? Why would I even protest it if I wasn't the commander?
Right.
That's my one huge tell.
Right.
And I look at him like, I mean, if you're ready to go for it, I'll just flip my card. And Avery's like, I don't know. What do you think, Jair?
And I told him, like the guy right next to us, Jamie, which we should talk about because Jamie
was the Crimea on the last game of Scythe, the guy who dominated.
We forgot his name.
And just wiped the floor with all of us. And he's sitting next to Jair in this game.
So throughout the whole game, he kind of like ousted himself as the commander, but I guess he was just doing that to just trick people into believing he was the commander. But I knew he wasn't because he said that Michael and Avery were the spies, and I knew for a fact that they weren't. But then he was just saying, and then he says like, "Oh, I think you're the spy," and I'm like, "Well, you either think or I'm the spy." Because
I heard you guys talking, and I couldn't hear what you were. I remember him saying, "Well, I think you're the spy," and I didn't hear a response. So that's hilarious. I love this. Both of you are pointing guns at each other, like you know I'm a spy, but it means nothing now. It means nothing.
So I was telling that to Avery, but I guess he misinterpreted that as I'm pretty sure Jamie's the commander.
You got interrupted.
Yeah.
And he took that as you're done speaking.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh yeah, well, Jair feels that way, and Jair's like, wait, and he pulls the trigger on Jamie, and I just looked because I could tell Jair was not done talking. I was like, oh well.
And I'm like, but what's the cool thing is that, you know, only Avery, you, and myself knew that I was the spy. And Panda had his suspicion because he said I had a tail.
Oh, that's right. Well, no. Panda also knew that was a shocking win because at that point I had told him through sign language who the spies were.
Right.
So he was surprised too.
Yeah.
But
I just love that everyone was just like, what?
It should not have happened.
So good. That's my favorite part of the game. Just that random pulling your veil out, or just
another thing that makes it
really
really great is that there's no salt. You can't afford to be salty and whiny and crybaby, which we'll talk a little bit later. But you can't afford to be that because the game's done. You wrap it up and you move to the next one.
Yep.
And one of the best things is the meta game. We talked about how someone's always the spy. Well, Avery is constantly a spy. And so if we were to play 5 games, it doesn't matter. The cards are shuffled. They are all shuffled up and handed out. There's no like, well, last game you were, so this game you aren't. Nothing like that. It's all random. But just because you were a spy 4 times in a row, no one trusts you the next time. And they really trust you. It's like, there's no way you were a spy 5 times in a row. And just watching people like...
So even if these games don't really stack... Well, every, playthrough, you go through it. But if you sit down and you do 5 games with the same people, that last game is just going to be so charged with so much energy of like, you've been a spy this whole time. Like, oh, don't trust him. And just... It stacks up. That replayability stacks up. And that last game you play in one sitting is just the best out of all the games beforehand.
I do want to talk about maybe the 2 biggest weaknesses this game has.
Yeah.
The first one is introverts can enjoy it. They have a lot of fun. But if they are not ones who want to be expressive and loud, and they don't find the joy in the social deduction, and when I say picking on people, it's not mean, but you do when you know someone's a spy, you have to keep on them.
Yeah.
Or when you know they're the commander, you have to like be pointing at them and that sort of thing. It's not so much that this game's a negative, it's that it does have a certain crowd it plays to. It's a large crowd, very large crowd, but when you're not in it, you're especially not in it. Carol and Blanca, other Eton people, they were invited to play Don't Mess with Cthulhu later, but because of their experience with games like The Resistance, they don't enjoy that idea of picking on each other and finding the villain. They don't like that concept of the villain as more opponents, which I totally respect. And I never really thought of it that way, as I personally had never experienced it. But getting to hear that other side of it was like, oh, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, and even myself, like, just knowing how these games work, because I feel like the first game I played that was deduction based like this, like the Resistance, was Rick and Morty Total Recall game, which is, you know, same concept. You have the parasites, you have the humans, you have to work together to figure out who the parasites are, and yeah, basic concept and gameplay, game mechanic. And even then, when I first played it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if this is something I would get good at or anything like that. But I just think also it's just playing with the right people.
That is the biggest thing with Resistance. And any game where the human element is bigger than the game itself. Yeah. The game is a couple tokens, a tiny little board to keep the tokens on, and the cards on that tell you if you're a good or bad guy. That's really all. Everything else is just extra. There was an original printing. I don't know what components were in it. When I first played this game, it was my first ever board game night ever. We played Seven Wonders and Resistance, and I think Small World. But when we played Resistance, it was the original tiny box version, and there were a couple tokens and cards, and everything was thumbs up, thumbs down, and pointing. The new game has all these components that are so unnecessary, but they're just nice and flavorful, and so involving less, hey, who did he want to send on the mission or not? It's so much human element that it does involve the people you play. But if you have a good group that loves to laugh, it's a great drinking game. I don't, I'm always the first one to say, everybody's like, oh man, this would be so much fun drunk. 80-90% of the time, I'm sitting there like, not really. Escape rooms would be so much more fun drunk. No, they're not. No, it's a terrible idea. This one, not when you're learning it. If you're going to play this, you play this as you start to drink. Yeah. And then by the time you're starting to feel fun and wild, then, that's when the yelling and all that happen. The other downside, the game struggles in the first round. So in our game of 6 people, in the first mission you have to send 2 people. Well, who do you send? You have no clues on who's good or bad, and you just fling it out there. Yeah. On one end, it can be looked at as typically a win for the Resistance, because it's more in the spy's favor, because the spies only need one bad card to fail a mission. It's not a majority, it's just one bad card, game over. There's a little different rules in the 7 to 10 player game, but whatever. It's about that, and it's close. But a lot of people don't care for that first round. They find that to be a big weakness, and that's definitely fair. I have another game, Deception Murder in Hong Kong, we need to play. Where basically, think of Resistance kind of with a game master. Someone watching over it all. Or Werewolf, if you played Werewolf or Mafia, where someone was always like, okay, I'm in charge. Like when at the beginning of Resistance, we tell everyone to close their eyes, and the spies open their eyes. Right. In games like Werewolf and Mafia, someone's always there to monitor and game master it. The Deception has a game master that's just as involved as everyone else. But they have to give clues. So the first part of the game, they set up clues and they give you somewhere to start. And it's like, okay, excellent. And Resistance could really afford maybe something like that. There are some modules that I have not used yet. There are so many modules I have yet to touch on. There's so many I have used. But that's one I haven't touched yet of the missions. But those are really the only issues I can see with the game. Yeah. Harsh no demographic and rough first round. Right. Other than that, it's just, like I said, it stacks up. If you're playing with the right people, you're just going to have a blast by the end of it. I'm gonna end my review with a story. 2012, the summer, I worked at Virginia City. Okay. It's a opera house where we perform vaudeville and melodramas. The cast lived in a swamp. Literally, it was a dirt road. With cabins, barely any electricity, no running water. There was a bathhouse we all had to use. And then there was just 5 feet of road dropped straight into a swamp lake. This is like in the 1920s? It felt like it. We need to go visit if we ever hit Montana. It's excellent, and I love it. It sounds miserable. It was incredibly fun because we were all able to bond and get along. Nice. And one of the things I did right beforehand is my mom helped with proms, and she'd have what's called Oriental Trading Magazine. It's by all the cheap made in China stuff, really. And so we had the 007 prom with gambling and cards and stuff. And I found all these decks of cards. long story short, with poker chips and like a dozen aces and jokers, I made my own Resistance game. It's the exact same game. I just made my own components. I was like, okay, guys, gather round. And I just remember that first game. Everybody's like, okay, it's the fat, nerdy guy. Everybody else are these super attractive, skinny people. But I will entertain him because we have a whole summer with him. We'll give it a shot. Every night, more like occasionally they wouldn't. They had other things to do. Be like, Nick, go get it. Go get Resistance. Go get it. We gotta go play. And there's drinks everywhere, but there's no one else there. It's just us, and we're all drinking, and we are all just playing Resistance and screaming and yelling. There's a video we have of someone just crying to the heavens that these two guys are the spies. And if you watch the video, because they were the spies, he was right. And you watch both of them just sit there looking at each other shiftily like, okay. And at the time, I couldn't tell. It was me. They were trying to get me to vote for it, that this was a good idea to not let them go. And I just sat there and just let it all happen. And if you came in unprepared, you'd go deaf from all the yelling, Nick, no, don't trust it. And I have so many memories attached to this game. Because of that, it gets my gold star. It's incredible. Awesome. It's one of my absolute favorite games, and it's been for so long. I'm starting to get to a point where we're playing new games. I'm learning so much about games and learning so much about myself that favorite games of all time thing is really shifting. It's very amorphous, if that's a word. But the Resistance still stands up there. I don't know if it's number one, but awesome. It is up there.
No, I mean, and ever since I met you, you've been talking about this game so much. At first I just didn't even know what it was. I didn't know it was a deduction game. You was just talking about it, oh, we're gonna play games. So I'm gonna bring Resistance. Resistance. So I didn't really know what it was, and it was just this legendary board game that I always mentioned, and it's just it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. Coming from someone not playing board games before, I expected it to be some
Scythe?
some crazy, weird, humongous game that takes 5 hours to play. But that's awesome that and that's a cool thing about liking board games the way you do, and it's just board games are not just 5-hour games that you have to sit.
That's the thing is. Yeah. It's really hard to go to a party where someone's like, hey, one person says, hey, bring some games. And you're like, I'm going to grab Fun Employed and Codenames. I'm going to bring all these light, fun games. But Game Guy shows up with games, and they have that thought. It's oh, he wants us to sit down and learn about dwarves and elves, and that's going to be our day. It's no, grab your drinks, and we're going to yell words at each other as we try to guess who the Codename spies are. Yeah. We're going to, build a resume with Fun Employed. You got to trust that your game people understand the world they're walking into. Now, we talked ahead of time about, we don't usually talk about if we're going to give a star or not. If we're going to give the star. Mm-hmm. But I was very curious that you said you were not going to give the star. Because we just talked about it very positively.
Yeah.
That's totally okay, and it doesn't say it's a bad game. But I'm curious, what kept you from giving the star?
I think we mentioned that. You mentioned how, and I guess I just didn't know how to put it into words, but that whole the game having a very specific crowd, which, like I said at first, the first game of deduction I played, I wasn't feeling it, and when I heard that the Resistance was a deduction game, and then a couple of the other indie boards and game ones, Cthulhu, it just took me a minute to figure out how do I deal with this kind of game, and I'm not saying that it's a bad game. I had a blast. I think it might have been one of the most fun games we've played together, especially because it's also a party game. So it's kind of that in between of it being a party game, which I just enjoy so much, and being that deduction game that kind of keeps me back a little bit. It still holds me back because I don't want to say I'm an introvert, because I don't think I am. Also, I'm not a full-fledged extrovert. So these kinds of games kind of hold me back a little bit, but it's mostly in my own psyche, in my own head. So I'm not giving it a star, but it's mostly because I don't think I'm the kind of person that would 100%
we were talking about it
this game
before.
as you.
It may not be on your shelf,
Yeah.
but if I said, "Hey, come over, we're gonna play Resistance," you'd hop over.
Oh,
and second.
definitely, yeah.
And that's absolutely fair.
Yeah.
I strive. I'm excited to find the moments that we disagree with games.
Mm-hmm.
I love them because it means we can have this talk. It's so interesting early on in your youth. When someone doesn't like something that you like, it's an attack on you. Psychologically, it's like, wait, you don't like Venture Brothers? What's wrong with you? It's okay. It's really fun because a great person to talk games with is Sean at Etten, the owner.
Right.
Because almost everything I love and we play together, he hates. Sometimes because I can't give rules to save my life. But other times it's just because he's like, oh, no, this is not at all my kind of game. And I hated my experience with it because it had player elimination or it was about watching yourself fall over. And I don't like that. And I was like, okay, cool. And I love that disagreement. So I like hearing it from someone, again, who's just not me or a bunch of actors drunk in like the mountains of Montana.
Yeah, no. And I feel like, I don't know, it would be hard for me to, I think it would just, there just has to be a game that makes me upset playing it, that just makes me not want to keep playing it, even if it's not like the most fun thing. Because I'm to be honest, like for example, Dungeon Pets, I have tons of fun with it and I enjoy it, but I don't even think I would have it on my shelf.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a game I would have on my shelf. But I mean, even the Resistance, even if I don't think it's my kind of game 100%, I would still consider it to have it on my shelf because it's a party game.
And that's the great thing with the reviews.
First and foremost. Yeah.
Fantastic game. But what about Favor of the Pharaoh? Tell us about Favor of the Pharaoh.
Favor of the Pharaoh. So this is a game we've been wanting to play for a long time, mostly because it's so relevant to something else that's going on with the podcast. Dice chucking. Throwing dice and chucking it around. And if you've been listening, you know about Summer Camp, the game mostly Nick is trying to develop, and I'm just like, oh boys.
You're my consultant?
Yeah. And it's all about dice. And it's all about trying to figure out things to dice. And just playing this game, this is something you've mentioned before. Just opening the box is a big box. You have so many components in it. But once you start playing it, it's very simple. You have a bunch of different types of cards with different...
we'll use the tiles.
Tiles, yes. So they're tiles, and to get a tile, you have to roll a specific...
you start with 3 dice in the beginning of the game.
You start with 3, right? Dice.
3 basic 6-sided die.
Yeah.
Very typical.
And you have to have a specific combination of dice to acquire one of these tiles. For example, three of a kind.
Yeah, gets you a worker.
Gets you one tile. That tile might get you another dice. So you have a 4th dice on your control. Now every different tile has different things to it. There's the one tile that can get you a very specific dice that has only, what was it? Only the top 3, like the top 3, like
there's so many
4,
types.
5, and 6.
Yeah, there's noble dice, and they are orange, and so they go 4, 5, 6. That's the only sides
4,
on
5,
it. There's
6.
still 6-sided dice. But those are the only options. And then the serfs are yellow dice, and they only go 1 through 3 or 1 through 4.
Right, and you're using all of these dice to get more and more dice up until the point where you can roll dice to acquire the favor of the Pharaoh,
yeah,
which is the queen.
Well,
right?
you gain the queen.
You gain the queen,
which gets you the start of the favor of the Pharaoh. The queen, acquiring the queen begins the last round of the game.
Right.
And then,
yes,
the final roll off. So
you have to roll. You have to roll at least 7 of a
kind to gain the queen.
Right.
At the bottom of your pyramid, there's these you have a little pyramid where you can put all your dice.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that too much. It's actually pretty irrelevant to the game. You can play without them.
Right.
But you note at the bottom there's 7, 8, 9, 10. It goes, I think, up to 12. And you put whatever number you rolled for the queen.
Number of dice.
Well, if you rolled 7 5s.
Right.
And you would take a number 5 dice and put it under your 7 spot. So everyone knows in the final roll off, they have to beat either a higher number, so they go 7 6s, or they have to have a higher number of pairings. So 8 2s or 9 4s.
Right.
10 twos, things like that. And everyone gets one more chance to try and beat yours, and whoever got the queen gets the last chance.
Yes.
And that's it. If you blow it, you had one chance and you blew it.
And so you're building yourself to be able to get to that point where you can have 8 or 9 dice almost to just try to work it all together.
We played a quick
and those
game.
tiles, and then you have certain tiles that let you manipulate the dice. So if you roll a 5 and you wanted a 6, you have one that bumps you up a little bit higher. And then there's some tiles that give you the scarabs. Which are small little perks that you can use once in gameplay.
They're one-time use. You either get to re-roll a die before you lock in, or you get to add another pip to a die.
And then there's another tile that you can acquire that gets you a scarab every turn automatically. So I mean, gonna just throw it out there. I won the game.
Yes.
And I believe it was because I had that scarab perk. I had so many little perks that would either let me roll again a bunch of times, let me bump my numbers up. So I managed to get a couple of 6 on my first roll. So I set those up, and then using all of the other perks that I had used from my previous tiles I had gotten, I managed to turn it all into, what was it, 8?
I think you had 8 sixes.
8 sixes, and you had 7. Right?
I had 8 dice. I could not beat you, but I wanted to see if I could tie. But one of my special die only goes up to 5. I always forgot that, and so I kept rolling 6s, and I had 7 6s, and I realized I cannot get this up to a 6.
Yeah.
I can't, and I mean I already had lost, but I wanted to see, which is really exciting because I have never lost Favor of the Pharaoh, and I always talk about I don't even care if I win or lose, and that's really hard to say when you only win.
Yeah.
But I finally lost, and I just didn't care. So the great thing, because it's fun to watch you describe games as someone coming into it, and then I fill in the glue, and it's just I have different things each time and less every time. So there are 5 rows of different things and 4 columns. In every column, there's 2 yellow tiles which give you dice. The blue ones, there's one blue one that lets you manipulate the odds of your dice, and a red one that gives you some superpower.
Right.
With only 3 dice, you can only start on the bottom ones. Then, when you get one of those yellow ones that gets you an extra dice, now you can go to the next level where there's 4 of a kind, and 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2 pairs.
Right.
And you get another dice out of that. Then you can go to the 5th, 6th, and you work your way up to that 7th one. You can't immediately go for the queen, but you can try to make sure not only do you have as many dice as you can possibly acquire, but also how many odd
manipulators.
Manipulators you can get, how many scarabs. Because the best thing in the game is easily that it has one of the best finales in board game history that I've experienced, where everyone is just going to take everything they've amassed the entire game and train themselves to use and just fling it and try to get the best thing they possibly can
out of it.
The greatest thing about the game on that, first off, before we go into that, accessibility. This game is tricky. If you look at the box, this looks like a thicker game.
Yep.
Like when I talk about you look at this game on the shelf, it's a cursed game, because a casual person will look at that like, that looks like that's going to take like 2-3 hours to play. It's a big pyramid. You think you're going to build a civilization with wonders on it or something. The hardcore people who are looking for a game like that are going to do their research, and they're going to realize, oh, this is just a bunch of simple dice chucking that takes about 20 minutes. Oh, I don't want that. What it's for is for people who like having fun.
Yeah.
As soon as you open it up, it gets really silly. There's just tons of dice, millions of tiles, because these tiles are interchangeable.
Yeah.
So much so, there's an app, so you can just randomize it. We played with the first time player setup. We'll be playing again in the future, and I'm so excited to hit that shuffle and play. We didn't use half the dice available to us, the different colors of dice, because you don't get to use all of them in every game. So being able to just, all right, now we're playing with serfs and the vizier, who has a special sided dice that lets you take a tile from someone else and use it for the turn. And imagine, so remember the yellow cards are always there permanently. When you gain a die, you have it forever. The blue ones are there forever. You use them once a round. Once you've used them, you're done. The red ones are a super duper broken power, but once you use it, you turn it over. Imagine if you're a vizier and every turn you can take someone's red for yourself and activate it. And then put it back.
Give it back.
Yeah, then you just
it?
No. You use it yourself, so you get that extra turn. And you get the vizier is such a dirty card, and a dirty tile, and I love it. And it just makes sure every game's very different. But it's also super accessible. I don't have anybody walking away from Favor of the Pharaoh confused about what it is.
Yeah.
It's so clear because it's doing the same thing over and over. But what you're doing is so satisfying. You're throwing dice. The best mechanic of the game isn't the grid, isn't the replayability of it, which there's tons of that, because we wanted to go again, but we had to go into Scythe.
Right.
Or we had to go into Resistance. But is that you throw your dice out, and you're trying to get, maybe in the beginning you want to get 3 of a kind. You really want the tile that's there. So you roll, you get a 5, a 4, and a 1. You have to lock 1 dice in. It's not Yahtzee. You don't get to roll 3 times and just pray for the best. You can keep rolling as long as you have dice to roll. But every turn you have to lock a dice in.
At least 1.
So at the first turn, you have a maximum of 3 turns. Near the end of the game, you have 8 dice. Yep. Roll a die. Okay, I have to lock 1 in. We'll put this one in. You're rolling 7 dice. Okay, and that satisfying, I love throwing dice over and over again is so much fun and rewarding, and it feels so good. And then the final roll-off, taking everything. I'm trying to get 6s, and I have a 4. This thing lets me add 2. I'm going to do that. Okay, I'm going to roll these last 3, hoping I get what I want. It's so much wackiness. I describe it to people as Super Saiyan Yahtzee.
Super Saiyan Yahtzee.
You're by the end of it, you have power levels beyond your imagination.
Yeah, you feel powerful really quick.
Yes, that's the thing, is throwing all those dice feels powerful, even when you can't, and you know you're not going to win. The game I've never really experienced it. That's a lie. I could have won this game.
Okay.
I could have gotten the queen, and been the only person to have 7 dice, and then because I had 6s. If I had gotten 7 6s, everyone else had 6. Whenever you get the queen, everyone else gets 1 more die added to their pool.
Right.
And you both would have had a maximum of 7 dice. I just wanted to kind of secure my victory even further, and I went and played another round, and I blew it for myself. I didn't throw the game away on purpose. I thought I could just dunk even harder. The game, I have heard, can suffer from runaway winners, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I say it every time I play. It's a competitive game. We're not cooperating, but you'll roll, and if you're not sure what to do, I will throw genuine advice, because I just want people to succeed.
Yeah.
It's like, look at the cool thing you can do.
No, it's true, because you do want... It's just such a cool mechanic that you want to keep seeing it and seeing it, even in your, the competition. You just want to see it, get even crazier so you can pull some crazier stuff.
Well, I think what really solidified it for you is you got the tile for Royal Servants. There's a different amount of tiles in the game. The bottom one has a tile for, if you wanted to get the worker. There's 3 workers in our game we played in the 3-player game, so everybody can have 1. But as you get higher up, there's less of them. And in the second and third, the second to the top and the top row, there's only 1 of each. And so there's only 1 Royal Servant. And that gave you a red and a white dice. Don't quite worry about what all that means. But you got that, and I was like, if I can get that, I'm going to win this game.
Yeah.
And you took it out from under me when I thought I could grab it. And I was just like, I'm so mad, but I'm so happy that you saw that and you could do it. Yeah. And it's not like it was super advanced. It was satisfying to know that it was as simple as I thought it was. But yeah, it's replayable with all that stuff. It's just satisfying. It's for people who like silly games. Who's this game for? It looks like a serious game. It looks like it wants to be taken seriously. Kind of like Resistance. Resistance is this dystopian future, and you scream the whole time. Favor of the Pharaoh is not. And I'd argue the theme is not there, because the theme they want is this ancient Egypt. You're building your empire. And that's fair. You start out getting workers, and by the end of it, you have the vizier on your side. This, I was telling you, I think a different theme. It feels like a casino.
Casino,
like an Egyptian casino.
Like
and you're
Luxor Casino in Las Vegas. Yeah, that's what it feels like.
And that makes it even more fun for me. It feels so absolutely silly. I would love to have some sort of casino game based off Favor of the Pharaoh.
Right.
Where we're all throwing things out. It's totally wacky in that sense. What would you say if there's anything lacking off of it?
Well, we mentioned about the theme itself, that it's not lacking. It's just, well,
I think if it's shooting to be an ancient Egyptian theme and you to feel like you're building the pyramids and doing stuff like you would in maybe Civilization,
right.
I don't feel that.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
If there are games that want you to feel a theme and you don't, like with Pandemic, I don't ever really feel the theme of the game. I need to get tokens off board.
Right.
I do not.
Right.
We talk about Seven Wonders Duel a lot.
Yeah.
I love that game, and it's about building a civilization. That theme for me is so barely connected. I'm looking at colors and numbers, and I like the colors and numbers, but I would say a detractor of it is the theme. Favor the Pharaoh, the fact it's not there is fine.
But it doesn't kill it for what the game's worth. I'm not sure. I would definitely want to play a couple more games to see if there's anything things I feel broken. Well, I wouldn't say broken, just off. But so far, I just think this is probably like one of those like first time playing this kind of game of dice chucking. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned, just don't hate me. I've never played Jotzi. But I know about it and I know the whole concept. This is the first kind of game I played that you're just adding dice to your collection and chucking it again. And I'm not really sure how many other games are there like that.
Oh, there's so many.
But this one...
Oh, the journey we're going to take.
Yeah. But this one feels really fun. And I just enjoy it so much that, it also is very relevant to summer camp and what we want to set up for it.
The Favor the Pharaoh actually really helped summer camp, and I'm excited to talk about that. For me, there's also one huge negative to this game. I'm going to say right now, this game is one of the most underrated games I've ever played. No one knows about it. That you go up to a casual... Every now and then, I went to Reddit, and of course people had played it. But I went to the game store. No one knows of it. It's constantly out of stock because Bezier, I think that's how you say it, Bezier Games, they made it, and they made Werewolf, another Resistance-style game, and that's their big thing. They just released Werewolf Legacy. There's One Night Werewolf. There's One Night Alien and Vampire and all these things. They know where their market is, and that game sells like hotcakes. There's two factors to that. One, it's a party game. Party games sell well. It's great. Right. There's another factor. This game is full price. It is $50, $60 for a game that claims to be 45 minutes. That's if you factor in setup. Outside of that, and a game explaining. We had a 45-minute game, and it was the explaining it to you and all that stuff. If we sat down again, I'd be surprised if this made it to 30. I would be surprised if it hit there. Yeah. And I don't feel the amount of game you get reflects on the price. I want to give this a star. If you're like me, and when I say money's not a thing, I need to give a huge disclaimer. I am really not. Oh God, but I just make a lot of bad decisions. If you like a game, or if someone says, "Hey, I have Favor the Pharaoh, do you want to play?" If you like fun, wacky games, this is wackier than things that claim to be wacky, like Munchkin or I would argue can be as wacky as Fun Employed in just a different sense. It's, hey, let's throw dice and laugh as we do it. It's crazy, but you have to like that kind of game, and if you don't, oh my goodness,
it's not gonna happen.
Oh, I'm right at that point. So if you can justify the price to yourself, and also the first thing people are gonna say is that was fun, but do we have to share the dice? The game comes with only enough dice that you have to pass the dice around every turn. There's an upgrade you can buy to get enough dice that no one has to. And fortunately, it's super satisfying, and I love that.
Right.
If you get Favor the Pharaoh, that means you're willing to spend $50 on a 20-30 minute game. Then yes, you want the extra dice.
Right.
Factor that in, but boy, this game needs more love. It needs more love.
Yeah.
And I want more people to hear about it, and so I'm really happy we reviewed
let's put it up on the stage. Yeah.
Yes. And again, we're going to be talking about it later. Remember Favor of the Pharaoh and the dice chucking it brought you, because it will be relevant in the very near future. Hey, Jair. What starts the T and ends with a time?
Tea time.
That was like you doing your impression of me doing your T. I loved it. Oh, man. So it's getting cold outside.
It is.
I love it here. It happens everywhere.
Oh, man.
But New Mexico is so consistent with its weather. It doesn't like, it could rain today and then be sunshiny tomorrow. It's pretty average for America that day. It's not always the first day of autumn. It's like 3 days after, and you just feel this shift at night. It
just happens.
And now everybody's wearing sweaters.
Yeah.
And I thought, a perfect flavor for the cold season. So, as usual, what are you feeling there?
First sip I had was like very cinnamony.
Ooh.
Some cinnamon in there. But also, I don't know, like, tasted like a banana nut, like not cupcake, a muffin.
Okay.
Those muffins you get.
I like a lot of what you're saying.
Like banana nut, very banana-y. Kind of like eating like honey bunches of oats, some bananas in there.
It's always weird because I want to like, how are you getting these flavors? But it's like, you're the one going in blind. I'm terrible with flavor and probably wouldn't have even got the cinnamon. But yeah, no,
That's what I feel. I don't know.
What would you name this tea?
I would name it Ben & Jerry's Chunky Monkey.
Ooh. Oh,
my favorite ice cream.
It's
hint hint.
Yo. Samesies. Hint. Okay. Well,
we can review Ben & Jerry's pints in the summer.
Just eat a whole bunch of ice cream. All right, the Dungeon Nuggets, just giant boys. All right, today we are messing with cinnamon apple spice.
Yes.
So when you said banana instead of apple, I was just like, what? But cinnamon apple is like topped with banana, like on the muffin tier. So when you said muffin, I was like, okay, I get it. I totally get where you're going
very
from.
Very muffiny.
Yeah, muffiny. That's what I would call it. Apple muffin, yeah. But you want to know what the blend master has to say? He says, this lively blend is dominated by an aromatic burst of sweet and spicy cinnamon and the flavor of ripe, juicy apples. There's a toasty chocolate note and a hint of creamy butterscotch in the finish that complements the lasting taste of apple and cinnamon, making this tea comforting and invigorating all at once.
I love how enunciative the brewmaster is.
I don't know how he enunciates. Oh my goodness, that was fun. Yeah. How do you feel about the tea though? Like as a review now?
Yeah, no, like it's great. I mean, it's been a cold couple of days, in the last couple of days, and I feel like tea is just right for the moment, and I love it.
Think about it. Yeah. I would not want. This may sound weird. I don't want honey in it. I want a drop, nothing more than a drop of like syrup.
Ooh, yeah.
I feel if it's honey, they'll become honey flavored.
Yeah.
The syrup will just add the sweetness of the apple and the chocolate and all that just bursting out. But like I would have this like roast aroma, kind of a hot chocolate substitute. Like, ooh, let's all gather by the fire and have cinnamon apple spice.
Yeah, this could be kind of like the apple cider substitute.
Very much so. That's what I was. Yeah, that's a much better way of putting it. On the scale, our scale here, which one day we will get. I believe it is Sweet Harvest Pumpkin, and then a tie between Lemon Ginger and Bengal Spice. Then last Mandarin Orange.
Oh yeah.
And then Roast Aroma. Where does it go?
Ooh, I like the sweetness. I like the banana nut. I mean, like I said, Chunky Monkey. That's what it tastes like for me. I would tie it up with the lemon ginger and the vanilla. Yeah.
So that's kind of like the standard of tea.
Yeah.
Like the pumpkin has gone above and beyond. Yeah. Everything else is there.
Yeah.
Is a little lacking. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Cool. I didn't necessarily expect ties. I thought it would all be on the spectrum, and it's fantastic to watch that evolve.
Yeah, no, I definitely need to draw up this board so everyone can see how I feel.
I have a fun, goofy idea we'll pitch to you sometime.
And then we can, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was tea time. That's how I wrote it out. On my $10,000 iPad. Okay, so back to Scythe. We're almost done.
Oh my god.
I was just saying, the great thing is that we're getting close to ending this amazing journey. We don't want it to end, but we do want it to end, but we don't want it to end. The problem is that I want it to end so I can play Scythe with we
all
can plan
stuff we got.
All the stuff, none of the stuff, just on our own terms. Okay, we want to use this module or this. We all talk it out rather than go that.
See if it breaks it or see if it just fits in a different way together. And I'm sure we'll if we play it, we'll talk about it in the podcast, what different things. Not every other day, but I
want to start two things here. We aren't going to talk too much about what happened in the chapter because at this point it's just spoiler heavy.
Yeah.
But for the most part, our game felt very standard. Felt that way. There's two big things which are kind of little spoilers. If you have not figured out at this point, first off, if you are really invested in doing Rise of Fenris on your own with nothing, just skip ahead, keep hitting skip until you hear something about summer camp. That's just going to help you out. If you don't mind hearing slight things, there are a couple new armies added in. We aren't going to talk about them because that is way too spoilerific. Yep. But they are from now on known as Team Secret and Team Redacted. And the reason we didn't talk about in the last game who I was playing as is I took Team Redacted in our casual play to use it. This game, Evan is Team Redacted. He was the Nordic, but now he's Team Redacted. Yep. And at the end of this game, this is a spoiler, but you get to switch out your team. This is not the first time it's offered. I won't tell you when the next one is. And that's why I'm not as worried. But yeah, everybody is offered to change their team if they want. And so we decided to kind of speed this up. We're going to just kind of give a mini review of how everyone did to kind of give you a feel of how it went for us.
Yeah.
But let's first talk about Adrian.
The winner.
Oh, the winner. He is officially the majority leader.
Stinky Adrian.
Stinky Adrian. He now leads with 4 wins. Wow. I have 2, and Evan has 1.
Nice.
It's so... it was... I wouldn't say... It wasn't close. I think he won by $10, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had second.
60s?
No, he was in the 50s.
50s.
So maybe less than 10, but it was close.
Right.
He's got Polania really figured out.
Yeah.
And we're going to go into talking about this in a little bit, but one of the things is that I was kind of aimed at by Evan. Evan, to his credit, we'll talk about his. Evan benefits from screwing around with people. And I think he wanted to test that by going out on me.
Right.
If he would spread it out a little more, because Polania was uncontested on that factor. He was just able to sit there and do what he does best. He attacked a couple times and it was advantageous for him. But for the most part, just did what he does. And I'm just so impressed by how he's able to adapt. Anything you want to add on that? Just it's so hard to talk about Adrian because he just
does his own thing. And well, coming from someone that played Polania. Last time when we played the regular game of Scythe, I could understand where he was coming from in his engine building. That just it's snappy. You don't see it. You don't see it if you don't notice it. And you're on the other side of the board, so you never know what's going on.
And there's so little I can do.
Yeah,
it's kind of up to other people to help.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very snappy, and you never realize it until it's very late that you're saying oh, I think this game is gonna end in 3 rounds, and he's like, no, I'm gonna end it in my round.
Yeah, this time he didn't try to hide it. Well, to be fair, no, someone else pointed it out. Can you do it? And he said yes. It's the first time I really didn't notice him. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a bit, but I think what's really cool. Great thing about Polania is that it's a great beginner army. Yeah. If you're interested in Scythe and really want to get into Scythe, Polania is maybe the one I will force on you. There's a couple of them I'll say, hey, you can play as this. Maybe the Nordic. I would say one of those two to start. because being able to take 2 options off the encounter cards,
Yeah.
super nice. Whereas one is great, but 2
of them.
Oh my goodness!
Else.
One is usually just meant to pay for the really expensive one, and you're just like, wow, that was really cool and expensive, and that just bolsters him so well. I would give Rustfiat to someone who's shaky if they want to play or not, because they have to follow the least amount of rules,
right?
And they can be jerks, and so they can just exploit themselves right away and realize their game is so much less complicated. But going back, Adrian just knocked it out of the park, and he switched out. He offered to switch out at the end to Team Secret, and that was and he has my admiration.
Yep.
And I'll explain again when it gets to me. But he just said, I want to have that challenge. And I was like, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
There's 2 missions left, and you're willing to just slam on the emergency brake and like, let's turn the corner because this is a chance to play this new exciting thing. And I respect that so much. So yeah, awesome. Greg was running the Saxony. He chose not to change, which was a little odd to me. I can't tell if he's trying to figure it out or he just likes where he is.
Right.
He once claimed he couldn't do much because he was sandwiched in between you and Adrian, but then he didn't change when he had the opportunity to, so I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
He did play a better game than he usually has. He got a couple more stars out. He was able to get a couple battle stars out there. I feel like he what's the word? He bides a lot of his time to the one big move, and then he does the big move. And then after that, we were trying to think of a way to put it, and that's what it is. He has a big move. He will bolster, and he'll get his attack up so he can do an attack.
Right.
But then his mechs, his character, they'll sit out there with no strength. And I don't think he also tries to rebound too hard. He will, after that battle, he had a big battle that he just crushed, and it was really cool. I was getting bullied in that game, and I was like, Greg, for the love of everything holy, you want to attack things. Why don't you attack my bully, please? Like, you want someone to go after. Why not that? And he did, and it was just super helpful. I was like, cool. I'm gonna be cool with you, Greg. I'm not gonna mess with you. Like, that was awesome. But then he just left himself out there, and then Polonia came in. It's like, if you're gonna sit there, I'm gonna go get a free star off the victory.
Because I got a star off from him. Yeah. From fighting him. But then Polonia came and took mine. Like, where I had beaten him, Polonia attacked me. Yes, and that's where Adrian got his win. Because I was getting my 5th star with him.
But I think Greg. It happened twice. Because I think he got both of his battle stars off of Greg. Yep. Because Greg put himself there, and he earned himself a star, but in doing so, gave 2-3 others out to other people. Right. And it seemed like I did what I wanted to do. Let me turn the gears. It's like you threw yourself out there. It's very much a war tactic. You get out there, and you have to figure out what they're going to do. Do they come back? Right. Or in Civilization, if you go out and pillage a city, you have all these units. Do they come back to heal? Do they go out to other cities? Right. And I don't think he's got A and B there, but C is such a crucial factor. And then he tries to get his engine up, and he finds his movement restricted. And I don't think Greg listens to the podcast. If he does, I'd just ask kind of look for a long term, kind of like maybe. When you maxed out your power in this game, and no one wanted to fight you. Usually we just don't fight you, but no one wanted to because you had some cards, you had power. It was scary. Yeah. And Greg,
I used it at my advantage into building, because I could have gone out fighting first, but I knew it was going to bolster me down. Yeah. So I wanted to get all that way up so I could get my star up. And then I could get my, what's the card? The card?
The objective card?
The objective card out as well. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I got the objective card. I did a couple more battles that got me,
that's long-term planning. And I don't feel... And this comes from... We're about to go into my discussion. That's something that just in general you have to be able to develop. And so if Greg was listening, I would just say, really work on that long term, because as we go into the last 2 games and things are about to get really wacky, I'm sure. I've done no looking, but it's going to be crazy, and you're going to need to bring your A game. I took second. Again, if there was second place numbers, I would have most of these checked.
I would get the thirds.
Yes, you would.
I think I've always gotten thirds.
Yes. You weren't there for mission 4, but yes, outside of that. The Rusvia, I played better than last week. I didn't let my objective... At that one point, I made a suboptimal move, but it was like, I'm already here, one turn, it's okay. And that was fine. It could have messed me up, but I made some alliances with Adrian, like, hey, just don't mess with me, please. I'd get surrounding the fortress before I went, or into the factory before I went into the factory. So it was just one extra turn.
Right.
And luckily I'm Rusvia, so I could immediately remedy that. But because typically we've gotten to a point now, we're talking about crybabies. I have become Evan was picking on me. He was messing with the board in such a way that I was being penalized heavily. Or not so much that I really was penalized heavily, but I had to plan around it.
Yep.
I had to play kind of a game and a half. And I look at him like, what's going on? And we talked for a while, and he jokingly, but with good heart, he was not being nasty at all. He's like, but you also have a victim complex as a game master. I was like, you may be right. And so I've decided no matter what, I am going to do my darndest to not allow that to be a part of my game. I've genuinely said, and it's true, a game master has the game and all the other players going against him because he owns the game.
Right.
You don't want him to. He's going to win. He knows it better than anyone else. We're 6 games into this. We all know Scythe.
Yep.
I am not the leader anymore with Adrian winning, but and I do feel to a degree. I mean, if you looked at that board, the way it was set up, he left Evan all alone. He definitely looked after me, but at the same time, it did force me to play smart. Because last game I made a lot of very poor choices in where I placed troops and where I moved stuff. And this time I made some less optimal moves, or I stayed put because I didn't want him to attack me. And I realized I shouldn't have done that, or there was just this wonderful like meta of, will he attack me? Will he leave me be? I have all these resources he could take. And there was one time he should have attacked me and didn't. But I managed, we talked about Greg's long-term plan. I got a lot of... I consistently, my power was always between like 12 and 6. I always had enough that when I turned that dial, I might be able to full crank it on you. And I kept my ability that says if I have a worker in the fight, I get to add a battle card.
Oh, yeah.
That, I didn't always use that one. It has so much use.
Yeah.
I took control of the market. I took control of it by just getting tons of cards. I wouldn't bolster all the time, but I would bolster my cards. And I had a handful of cards. And there were so many times we'd go into battle, and I would just, when I was going up against one person, that I thought I could match on power-wise, I would just play 3 2s. Because 3 2s is higher than a 5.
Right.
And I was playing my defense. I don't usually play defense. I play offense. And having to play that defense was actually really satisfying. And blow back and say, I will bite you. I usually come out, I will kill all of you. Ah, ha, 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 ha. But now that everyone's good, that's not as much of a threat. But there's this like, you have to take me seriously now that I'm kind of down. And I liked that I could make a statement that way. And that was really cool. So I'm still kind of aimless. I need to figure out where I'm at. But watching me on that, what would you say real quick?
I definitely feel like everyone's growing up to their own like factions, that people that were not as good at their factions are getting way better, and this is me basically, and Evan and Adrian, of course. But there's been some changes, and now there's going to be some changes as well that is just going to throw the game off completely.
And that might be, but I also feel your experience with Scythe now is going to carry over.
At least in your, because I know like first couple of games you were killing it with Russia,
but
now we know. Now we know how you play. Now we know what you're up to.
And early on, picking on me made sense, but that was just like, if you do that, you're just making sure neither of us win. Unless you think you can win by doing that.
Right.
And I feel today, or this game proved with Evan doing that, he can't win that way.
Yep.
He took 4th. Evan took, this was one of his weakest games. I think the winner had 56. He had 30. Straight 30. And I was just like, whoa, after everything you did to me. He's like, yep. And I had like 48, I think.
Right.
Or no, 47. And I'll explain that in a bit. But and that was the other thing is, I didn't switch my team out. I want to play other teams. But I'm so invested because I want to win the campaign. I want to win. But I can't. I told you I want to play as Albion so bad. But I'm so set in Rustviet, and I like how Rustviet plays, that I think I want to use that comfort. So I talked about how brave and cool it is that Adrian, the current leader, is going to just move on. And that's so cool. But I think for me, I'm going to actually keep it. I think I'm going to see if my unnecessary need to adapt to my team will help.
Okay.
But I'm curious.
Yeah.
Evan, we just talked about it. The reason he played such a weak game, genuinely, is he had the redacted army. It was new for him. He had not played with it before, and it's so different. Very aggressive. Evan does not play aggressive. He plays threatening. You can pounce on any point. But it's really fun to talk about this because I imagine 90% of the people here have not played Scythe. But it just sounds like war, like a war podcast. But I'll say today. For now, I'm going to say today as if we just played. But today, he came out swinging. He was gnashy teeth, deciding how the game pace would go. And it was fun. After I was done being a salty, whiny baby, it was fun to watch him control. And have to adapt to that is... Unfortunately, he's not a very aggressive person. And it didn't work out this time.
Nope.
And he knows.
I didn't feel it. I don't think either Adrian or Greg felt it as much as you did. Aggressiveness, maybe a little bit with Adrian.
If he wants to continue doing that to me, that is definitely his prerogative.
Right.
But if he can't see that Adrian is as much of a threat, well, Adrian, as good as he is with that team, and you with Polania, a team that I think you're going to blend with even better, he's got to respect the whole field. And I think if he plays spread out more, I do think he'll have genuinely a better start. Because he went super aggro, got I think 3 stars out really, really fast, but then his whole engine dropped. He ran out of ideas. And you have to kind of keep 5, 6 little engines going. But he's keeping that team because you would. Let's talk about Jair. 3rd place, but I told you how I always guess when the game's going to end. I didn't guess this time because I wasn't looking at Adrian because Jair scared me. Jair got down to 1 star really fast.
And I learned from that previous game that I played with Polania, and Jamie played my team, Crimea.
He was turning in cards left and right.
And he understood what he had to do with Crimea right away. And I had a something, kind of like an add-on from the campaign that would help me enlist a bunch easily starting off, and that's what I did. I just need to enlist. I need to get this out there.
Just all those residual tiny bonuses.
And by the third or fourth turn, I already had all my enlists out because I had a couple of encounter cards that also help a bunch. And I was already, I already knew what I was going to do for the rest of the game in the first 5 rounds.
Fair.
And I just loved, that whole engine, I got this. All right, this is what I have to do.
If you don't pester Russia a little bit, first of all, you should expect them, unless you really mess with their plans like I was, 100%, I'm typically going to do that with mechs right away. I got steel in my home country. It's going to happen.
Right.
But because I get hassled, I haven't been able to get my upgrades once. And that's the other one that's in my area.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how all this was going to go. But you definitely, I feel, maybe not master's the right word, but you definitely got the reins of Crimea. I saw you turn more cards in for upgrades. The Crimea you have combat cards, which are meant for combat. 90% of the time, that's what they're for. Crimea, and you have resources, do other stuff. They can turn in one of their combat cards as a resource. making everything significantly cheaper. And he's just going in like, oh, okay, have this card. I don't care. Take it. I don't want it. And that was so cool to watch. It was because other games I watch, you never use it. And I was like, oh, why not? Like you were really focused on being scared of battle. And then once you realized I have enough, I'm fine. Right. It was a frightening game. That was so much fun to witness happen. It was really cool.
No, yeah. And so I definitely learned a bunch from Jamie just watching him play or having someone else play my same faction. Helped me a lot understand like, oh, this is what I can do. And using that politic. I was... You were politicking. That's right. You were actually using it.
Yeah,
I was just straight up telling Greg like, hey, Greg, you should attack this guy next round.
Cause, you weren't wrong. It's a good idea for him.
Yeah, and I did the same for you. I was like, hey, if this guy beats Greg, you should go in there attacking too.
Yep. No, and you were right. That's the
mostly
secret
because
to being
it was going to benefit me because it was going to get you guys out of the way.
But it won't work if it doesn't help them as well. Yeah. You can't just say, hey, you should do this thing for me because I say so. Yeah. I even tried that a couple times. You always give me this look like, what's wrong with you? And that's totally fair. It's a fantastic, excellent way to play that game. And watching you do that, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not the only one. Evan will not politic. He will sit there and just watch. If I do this, we do this? I might. Come on. Like, to play the game with me. No. I have to accept that. I have to be okay with that. And more Adrian, I will do bad things to him, but more like in a way it doesn't damage him forever. Right. And he's like, okay, I get it. I beat the snot out of him to take some of his wood at one point, and he looked at me like, I had, you look at this and tell me I couldn't, I had to. He's like, I get it, it's fine. Yeah. And I thought he was going to come back and just rain down on me, and he didn't, and he still won. But the other thing is that now that you're all comfortable, you too left Crimea, and now you're Polania. Yeah. But that's the other team you played really well with, so I think you get a little bit of a kickstart, whereas like Adrian's got to relearn an entire faction. Yeah. You've had a game with Polania before, so I think it's going to be really scary.
Yeah. I got a couple of add-ons, too, that I think are going to help me out with Polania.
Oh, it's going to be good.
Yes, for sure.
Scythe. For sure. So much fun.
So much fun.
2 more weeks, and then we move on to talking about board games. Oh, man. Oh, all right. Boy.
So, tell me about your endeavors with the summer camp.
You mean the artist now known as Summer Camp, formerly known as Summer Camp, and almost died Summer Camp? So I said we'd try to get a playthrough going. Yep. And Sunday night, I was mostly done coming with ideas for locations, and I was like, you know what? Just play it, Nick. Just play it. Set it up. Give yourself three cabin areas, home bases, and just play it yourself. And I'm my own worst critic. It really sucks because, I'll do art, and I'm only good enough to know how bad I am at it. I know how bad I am at music, that it discourages me. And I usually know I'm beating myself up. It doesn't help that, I still beat myself up. It's still successful every time. But I also understand that's what it is. That's not what this is. I really hated the game. It was terrible. I couldn't even keep track of the things I had designed myself. All the cards were put all over the field. I was like, wait, who had what cards? Wait, what? No. And originally, a character could only get as many dice that were on their cards, and they never have more than 1 to 3 dice. Well, this one character, the way the game kept moving, got overloaded with dice they didn't want from the get-go. And I was like, that's awful. Movement's so sluggish. What's going on? I was not having a good time. It was so miserable. And I was so discouraged. I went home. I didn't give up on the project, but I thought we had to turn to something completely different. I was thinking of resource cubes and changing it to almost like managing an entire camp. Yeah. Like you were more setting out camp counselors. And I was like, that's so distant from what I want it to be. I want it to be like you're helping the kids out and things like that. Oh man, I want it to be intimate in that sense that like you're right there in the camp, not the one at the office ticking the numbers away. Because then you have that really long, drawn-out Euro game that's just not. It's only fun for the board game people. Right. And I don't think I'm qualified enough in my mathematics and everything to make that game. Right. And I got really discouraged. How are these dice going to work? I mean, I have them all the idea is you roll them, but then they're preset for the taking, and how am I going to make that all happen? And then we played Favor of the Pharaoh.
Yes.
Oh, and Favor of the Pharaoh helps so much. I was like, I want people who would like Favor of the Pharaoh to like my game. Right. And what makes this game fun? The combos are great. The trying to match up your numbers are great, but it's the chucking of the dice. My game has only like setting up the game, chucking of the dice, and then you just look at the dice the whole time. That's it. And I was like, that's not. It can be fun. I was telling you before. There's a game I have not played called Trois for the ones that cannot pronunciate Troyes, but it's Trois, and I think it's a location. I think it's the Notre Dame area of Paris. I could be wrong. Someone's gonna tell me I'm dumb. But idea is you roll dice and they're out on the field. They're kind of a worker placement. They all have different functions. The dice are not so much random as they are inventive and innovative and fantastic, from my understanding. And I kind of wanted to make that. Well, I've never played that game. I needed to strip that and say, stop trying to like make games. A, make games that exist, and B, make games that exist that you haven't played.
Right.
So I've played, Ex Libris and Altiplano, and we will play those. We have to play Ex Libris. And I wanted to use aspects of those. But Favor of the Pharaoh, I remembered I need to bring back the goofy fun. Those other games are really fun and thoughtful, but they're definitely more for the game side. I want that wacky fun, and dice chucking is going to bring it. So the game has a lot farther to go. But now the idea is you take your cards, your tiles. They're cards right now because I'm broke. These tiles of kids, and just keep them at your cabin. These represent the kids at your cabin, and you will have some meeples that represent you and your campers, which is great because I got the upgraded meeples for Scythe, so I have a whole bunch of extra goofy meeples to mess with.
Can use for prototype.
That's and cool. So you'll move them out on the board, and maybe I think it will still be modular. It'll still have different types, but you will take dice. You'll go there. You go to the athletic one where the orange dice are, and you will take an orange dice and add it to a bag, which I originally wanted to be in the game just because I like bags. But you add it to the bag, and you keep going. There's only so many moves. I think what I was talking about before that I thought I figured out a way to integrate something from Blood Rage. Blood Rage has a kind of a stamina bar, how many action points you can get for a turn. And if we do it that way, you can have as many workers out on the field as you want. And let's say you have 6 action points. 6 action points with 4 workers means you could get all 4 out there, and then 2 of them move 2 more. And you do that one at a time. I use 1 action point and move this character here. Well, then Jair's going to move his here, and 3 here. So your movement's not restricted by how many workers you have, or how many times they've moved, but this little action track.
Right.
When you get to a spot, you'll earn a die. Good, you got this die. That's excellent. And you'll take it and you'll put it in your bag. On the cabin as well, it's a lot, but I think as long as it's still understandable, and this is really simple, there will be a track. There'll be 5 tracks on it with little squares, like just 1 to whatever, 1 to 10. For every color of dice.
Right.
And you'll have like a little cube that you move across. All this does is tell you how many of each color are in your bag. That's it. It's nothing more than, I earned a green one. Move the green up 1. This one let me get 2 orange. I will move it up 2. And then, at the end of the round, everybody's done their moves. You have your cards of your characters, and then kind of a theme of the week. We're still figuring that out. I think there's a lot of different opportunities. But the theme of the week, let's say it's a sports week. The game will want 5 to 6 dice out of you. A 6 orange, a 5 orange, a 4 orange, a 1 blue, a green 3, and a green 2.
Right.
Okay, so there's that and the dice your characters want. From there, you take as many dice as you want out of your backpack. Whatever you take out, you're going to roll and try to match up either to your kids or to the theme. You don't know which ones you're pulling out, but you roll them and you are going to spend them. In other words, those get discarded. Whatever you match up on your characters, we talked about this before. If you can get a die to match the color of one of the kids, that's half a point. If you can get it match the numbers on there, there's another half point. So if you have a purple 3 and a character needs a purple 3, did it, point for you.
Oh, yeah.
And I have these gold stars over here.
Cool,
I got they were really cheap, and
those.
I picked those up.
Yeah.
You'll get a gold star.
Yeah.
In Dungeon Pets, at the end of when you give pets all the needs, there was an exhibition.
Right.
And every round, there was like, well, who has the most playful animals? Well, I do. Oh, well, you move up on the track and you get 7 points. And, well, I have some. Well, that's worth second place, so you get some points too. And that's how I think we'll approach the themes is I have these extra die, and they match here, 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 and here. How many points does that get me? Oh, look, I'm in front. I'll get so many points this round for being the best at Sports Week.
Right.
And I thought about why wouldn't I just grab all my dice? Or save them up for the last round so I can just throw everything at it. Because I think a good idea is to penalize you for bad dice rolls.
Right.
This will
so
add.
You don't want to get all of your dice out.
Do you want to? Well, it's push your luck. Do you want to stay nice and safe and only grab a couple?
Right.
Do you want to grab as many as you need? Let's say you need 10 dice, 5 up there, and 5 out of your characters. So do you just grab 5 dice? Is an option. Do you grab, let's grab 13. And you pull them out, you see what colors you have, you knock them down your track because you're not going to get them back. You roll them, you try to get them to match up. But you can also use that to manipulate your odds. If you know the next round is going to be like swimtastic,
right.
and this round you got a whole bunch of blue,
right.
and you know you're not going to use as many, maybe only shoot for a couple.
Yeah.
Maybe there's certain points you have to meet. Maybe there's a certain amount, and that'll come out in play testing.
Maybe this concept reminds me of Dungeon Pets, how the exhibition works, and the sales of the pets themselves.
Yeah.
How you flip the next
mm-hmm.
one, so you know what you're going to be working on your next round, and then this one to see if you can get stuff for this round and the next one. That would be fun for summer camp. So if you have a
mm-hmm.
theme out, you can at least have the second one up as well, and the other one's blocked off.
It's
so you know what you can work for this one
mm-hmm.
and save for the next round.
You're absolutely right. That is it's a very common thing in games. You haven't played Godfather in forever, but that was also there too. You knew we'd be drawing a blue card. You knew we'd be drawing a red tile. There's also a Great Western Trail that shows you what's coming up. But that's not to say like, oh, it's original in Dungeon. It's just that, yes, that's a very common thing. So to implement it would make sense.
Right.
No matter what, I want people to see what's happening. This one's a little more abstract, but follow me on this. Instead of there being predetermined themes, we have a deck of cards, and the deck of cards each one has a color of dice and a different side. So there's a red 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a blue 1 through 6 of all of them. And you shuffle all those up, and you deal out, if you need 5 for a week, and there's 3 weeks, so you draw 15 of these, and you lay them out. And that way they can say, okay, this set's going to be here, and this set's going to be here. And what I thought about is maybe the middle of the board, they're tiny cards, because you just need to see what the colors are and the numbers. And they're kind of put in a circle around maybe a campfire, and the campfire has the little bars that show you, okay, it's these 5. If there's some sort of special ability you can use that's costly, you can push it forward and mess with the expectations of the week or next week. So originally, it's currently hovering over 3 reds, a blue, and a green. But Jair's like, ooh, I have a whole bunch of orange. That's not going to help. So if I move it over, all those people that just got a bunch of red could be screwed. This comes from a game called Zolkin.
Okay.
It's a Mayan calendar game, and everything's on these gears. There's a dark move, and it was used one time. The one time I played it, this move was used at the very end, just to mess with everybody's last plans. It's super penalizing, but it moved the gears forward too. And it was just, whoa, and everybody had to stop oh, wait. I can't think of what could possibly cost you for that, because it's got to be important, or else everyone's just going to mess around with it and you can't see what's coming. But yeah, there's a lot of new options, but just the idea we'll be chucking these dice and working with these, I do worry that it could be too random. You thought if this could work, but hey, look. And so I'm also thinking of pulling a Favor of the Pharaoh and seeing if we can manipulate the number of sides on a dice. So if you can only go to
the opposite side to
or no, just like the serfs and the nobles. in that the noble only has 4, 5, and 6 as sides.
Right.
Something like that.
Okay, yeah.
So if you can't match everything to avoid penalty, maybe you can oh man, I'm not going to be able to get any reds, but all the reds are 6s, and the oranges are 4, 5s, and 6s. So that's a really good odd. I can go for that and at least avoid the penalty of this. And I'd also want to be afraid. I'm also a little afraid that it could have too much penalty. Right. So I'm just keeping an eye on that as well.
Yeah, no, I think the game, it's easier to scrape off things of a game, and it's better to scrape off things than to add things. Because I feel like summer camp, when you brought it up to me, it was a lot. You know, you were planning for it to be a lot of things. And this 1.0 that you had for it, it definitely had a lot of things, which I was following through, and I was really excited for it. But yeah, my worry was that whole how is this gonna cross over? If it's gonna be 20 different themes and different mathematical problems with it. So I think scraping off a couple of things and making it a little, I would say, simpler, but at the same time maintaining that same thematic and same gameplay of it. Of chucking dice and finding out what do you really want out of chucking dice? Do you want to set it up and just look at the dice, or do you just want to keep chucking dice?
The original version, you just chucked dice to set up the board, and then you took the dice off the board and you never really messed with them.
Right.
With this one, we would still have a bunch of different tiles.
Yeah.
And there may be some wacky ones. I really like the idea we have for the river. When you put the river down, if you want to move to any worker space, maybe for an action point you can't. In river, it only lets you go to the left or right. That's a really simple rule. And you can look at the river okay, if I go here, I can't go to the main hall. It's over there.
Yeah.
I have to go to either the basketball court or drama class. That's all I can do. And those ones I don't mind, but I don't feel the need to make overly complicated stuff.
Yeah.
And in other words, we're not scrapping everything. It's just been so heavily altered that I think a better game's going to come out of it. So, and it keeps the theme. As long as it keeps the theme, that's the whole reason the game exists. If it changes theme, it better be because we already made a great game that just doesn't feel summer campy.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
But there's my emotional outpour. It does all happen in the span of 1 week. I went home super defeated. I've been trying to basically I kept trying to make Altiplano, I realized. Because I made a crappy Ex Libris, I was just trying to make an Altiplano, and I was like, stop. And I'm not even making a Favor of the Pharaoh. It's just, I realized the dice chucking in Favor of the Pharaoh was great, and now I want to implement actual throwing of them. Right. That's it. But we're running along, and I want to go into the question of the week to wrap things up.
Oh, yes.
And the name of the game was, it was games that you played as a kid that you still hold special in your heart. Give me one, Jair, because I love yours.
Right. So, back when I was a kid, 5, 6 years old, we had this game called Bed Bugs.
Oh, I hate it every time you say it out loud.
I mean, I've never had to deal with real bed bugs, but this game, I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that remember it. It came out in 1985. Milton Bradley game, and it's basically a bed, and I think the bed is vibrate, just jumping up and down, and you have to catch your bed bugs of different colors. You have your own color, you have to pick your bed bugs, but they're all jumping around, so you need to catch them in the right moment. So I think I only played that 3 or 4 times because it needed specific batteries, and we weren't gonna go out of our ways to get more batteries, so we never played it again. But all those little bedbug pieces, there's so many of them, they were everywhere. I don't know, we just didn't put them in the right spot, and they were just out of there. So years later, I would just find the little bedbug in my bed, and
I hate it so much.
And I'm like, what are you doing here? Not an actual bed bug.
I know.
But still.
I've had bed bugs once in my life, and I would much rather have a roach-infested house than bed bugs.
Yeah.
So no, that's hilarious.
But it's funny because it's something that sticks out, and it's just one of those games that you never.
I do like that it just always comes back to you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like glitter. It's like, oh yeah. I was in a show once where we couldn't use blood, so we used glitter. And every now and then my clothes, even now after many washings, I'll be like, oh yeah, Evil Dead the musical. How about that? I was trying to think. I was going between 2.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give both. I'm going to go ahead. I will say the other one was the Pokemon Trainer Master Trainer game.
Ooh.
Because it was Pokemon, it was a great time.
Yeah.
I could go into some of the specifics, but I'd rather talk about Disney trivia. I don't think it was actually, at the time we called it Disney Trivial Pursuit. I don't think it was a Trivial Pursuit game. It comes in a tin film reel case. So that's really neat. You open it up, and Mickey Mouse is the board, his head, and you have little Mickey Mouse things. And like Trivial Pursuit, you have to get all the little categories to win. It was, for context, I don't like trivia games. I don't think they're really good because it's just always imbalanced. The smart person's going to win, or the person who likes soap jingles the most, and it happens to be about soap jingles, is going to win. The problem is, in my family, you can't play Trivial Pursuit because my mom will win. Oh. She will win. I went to a trivia night. We were just going to get pizza when my parents were down in South Carolina, and we happened to go into, it was the Groovy Mushroom or something, like the Mellow Mushroom, and it's just a weird 420 pizza place. I was there with my parents, which is weird. But we ordered this pizza, and it's trivia night, and they're already well into it. But we just pick up some paper, and we're like, we'll play along. I was there to get the Game of Thrones and the Harry Potter, and they just took everything else. Like, it's great because my mom didn't really watch old sports, but she knows all the old sports answers, and so she's like, yeah, the Harlem Globetrotters. They're the ones in this one year that did this one thing. Yeah, that's them. And they both have history,
I do
politics.
Not get how people remember
insane.
Those things.
And even if we had joined them, we would have wiped the floor with everyone. Like everything that sounded difficult, they had nailed down, and it's insane. And that's what watching Trivial Pursuit is like. You are lucky if you get one ring before they wrap up the game and beat you with a stick, and it is not fair. Disney Trivia was great because it was just this wonderful even playing field. There's a kiddie set of cards, and there's an adult set. We had watched so many. We had a closet full of those big chunky plastic cases. Yeah. We are talking around maybe 60 of those films. I can literally count the number of official Disney films that we didn't have on like one, maybe two hands. We watched them all. A lot. Cool. So we didn't need those dinky kid cards. Who is, on the one side they'll show Ariel, and question one, who is this? What movie are they from? Like, get that out of our face. We are 7 years old and we're ready for the big stuff. And there would be like,
big boys.
Yes. So name the first ever Disney animation. Steamboat Willie. Yeah. And I never even watched it. I just knew that. But we were like the same way my parents were with regular trivia, with adult Disney trivia questions. And we could keep up with them. I think my mom usually had the highest record of winning, but we could still like challenge, and I have beaten her. My sisters have won. It was just so magical that we had this wonderful even playing field we could play from. And I treasure that. I love it. And so, yeah, Disney Trivia is my go-to from way back when. Cool. So I like to end it on a nice warm note.
It did.
So
some good tea, family memories,
some good resistance, and good audience.
Thank you guys so much.